Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'd like to take a closer look at what I call the science and art of solving problems that are 100% within our control. Remember, all we have to do to solve every problem that is 100% within our control is to satisfy two groups of needs. The science has to do with the first group of needs, and the art has to do with the second group of needs. The science has to do with the law of cause and effect and is linear, and the art has to do with the ripple effect and is circular. The science has to do with going upstream and looking at what we think and what we do so we can satisfy 12 essential needs, thereby removing the primary causes. And the art has to do with working downstream with what we got so we can satisfy two additional temporary needs, thereby dealing with the subsequent causes as well as the subsequent needs. The science has to do with knowledge of how to live, which is what comes before the cause, and the art has to do with knowledge of how to adapt, which is what comes after the effect. The science has to do with the oneness of disease based on the anatomical limitations that we were given at birth, and the art has to do with the uniqueness of disease based upon the anatomical limitations from making mistakes that have damaged the body. So, why the law of cause and effect? Well, that's simple. We humans are living systems, and we are subject to the law of cause and effect, just like all matter is subject to Newton's third law of motion, the law of action and reaction. Cause and effect, action and reaction, are ordered pairs. One comes before the other and the sequence cannot be reversed. This is extremely important because almost every system out there is making a mistake when it comes to solving our problems. Boy, and I've mentioned this before. You can click here and go to a video I made recently about 3 ways we screw up the law of cause and effect. Most of us screw up the law of cause and effect because of what comes before the cause. And that's the knowledge we're missing. That's knowledge of how to live. And when you look at various protocols and systems out there, this is the biggest piece of the puzzle we're missing. When you look at people who make quadrant systems like Ken Wilber, who, by the way, did a brilliant job of mapping and indexing all the worldviews, religions, and philosophies, but he did it on the wrong path, and he doesn't incorporate cause and effect. Just like the I Ching, it's based on the polar opposites of yin and yang. And the foundation of the I Ching is based on these 8 trigrams that form 64 hexagrams, and the base is all about polar opposites. It doesn't incorporate cause and effect at the base, and that's the key. It's at the base. The base is the foundation. So we have to understand that we have to look at our needs, and that's where that's where the knowledge of how to live is at. So in Latin we call this bonus ponens. It's when we put the cart before the horse, and just about every system out there is making this mistake. And what we have to understand is that we can find the knowledge of how to live, we can change what we do overnight and remove the primary causes immediately, but the key here is we can't change what we got overnight. And that's where the art of healing comes into play. And most systems and protocols out there only use the art, and the piece of the puzzle they're missing is what comes before the cause. That's why I said there are 3 ways to screw up the law of cause and effect. The biggest way virtually everyone on this planet screws up the law of cause and effect is because they don't have the knowledge of how to live. So if you use any of these protocols that are part of the art, let's say like traditional Chinese medicine, you'll go to these people and they'll stick some needles in your butt and they'll tell you how to eat, but they don't have the knowledge of how to live. They won't tell you how to correct mistakes we're making. They'll just help you correct imbalances that were created by following the system to begin with. So the key here is you never apply the art without the science. And virtually every protocol out there is doing that. In fact, that reminds me of a seminar I went to back in 1990 with Dr. Ralph Sinkay, who was a chiropractor. And he starts off his presentation by saying, I'm a doctor, I'm a chiropractor, but my whole system is based on a scam. But let me explain that. He says, now I'm not denying that we don't have subluxations. I'm not denying that the body doesn't get out of alignment and that creates blockages and nerve flow. And that's important. We got to correct those. But what we don't understand is what creates the blockage. Why is the body going out of alignment? Same thing with acupuncture. They can clear a blockage. They understand the meridian systems. They can stimulate the meridians and clear the blockage. And voila, it's magic. The symptoms go away. But they don't understand what causes the blockage. Well, what's causing the blockage is when the lymph system backs up into the cells. So they never address the primary cause. So once again, it's very important. Never apply the art without the science. So the law of cause and effect is a very important part of the puzzle that virtually everyone doesn't understand. Once again, there are three ways to screw up the law of cause and effect. Now there's one group of people I really like a lot. When I first found them, I go, wow, they're doing exactly what I'm doing. They're looking at all the pieces in the puzzle and they're trying to figure out how to solve problems. And they understand the knowledge of how to live better than anyone else. They understand that knowledge of habits is far more important than all the knowledge of chemistry and biology and physics and pharmakeia and all combined. And they understand the knowledge of how to live. But they don't understand that they can screw up the law of cause and effect by not understanding the ripple effect. And they're almost a little arrogant about it. And they've given themselves a bad name because they poo-poo all the art and assume all the art is in the same class as allopathic medicine, which is the worst of all forms of art. Now, there's a time and a place to use allopathic medicine. But those are mainly for problems that are outside our control. And there's also a time when we've gone to a point where a condition is life-threatening, and we can also use allopathic medicine to control the body so it doesn't die on the spot. But what allopathic medicine is missing is the same thing that traditional Chinese medicine is missing. It's the same thing that chiropractic medicine is missing. It's the same thing that the Ayurvedic medicine is missing. They don't have the knowledge of how to live. So these natural hygienists are really arrogant. They know that most people are applying the art without the science, and they just assume that if we remove the primary causes, that solves all the problems. But once again, we can change what we do immediately or overnight and remove the primary causes immediately, but we can't change what we got overnight. So if we're banging our head up against the wall, we can stop banging our head up against the wall. Hey, the headache goes away. But what if you've been banging your head up against the wall for 50 years? You may have done some damage, and we can't reverse that overnight. So there's a time and a place to apply the art. And I explain this as piece number 35 in a special teaching tool that I created. And you can look down below in the description box and go to the ultimate schematic and learn all about all 281 pieces that I've identified. And you can go to the Ultimate Solution playlist and look at part 1 where I talk about the science and art of solving problems. But what I'm talking about right now has to do with 2 additional temporary needs that are part of the ripple effect. Piece 34 are subsequent needs from being disconnected, and there are 10 subsequent needs from being disconnected, 6 of which are also problems of knowledge, and I explain that in all my other videos. But piece 35 is the one that is confusing for a lot of us. And those are subsequent causes that don't go away just because we remove the primary causes. And this is where the art has to come into play. This is where we can use acupuncture. This is where we can use chiropractic medicine or homeopathic medicine. And that's because we can't change everything overnight. So there are 3 things we have to do when it comes to solving problems. Number 1, give the body everything it needs. Number 2, support all the organs of elimination. But 3 is support the body in case it's damaged in any way. This is when we got to work downstream. But remember, the ultimate solution is always to go upstream. Let's take a look at our belief system. Do we have the knowledge of how to live? No, most of us don't. We don't have the knowledge of how to live. And that's why we make mistakes and we have problems. So what we have to do is we got to look at what we do and why we do it. We got to look at the whys. That's where the solution lies. So when we look at what we do, we find that we're not satisfying our needs. And once again, there are 2 groups of needs we must satisfy. And in addition to supporting the body because it might be temporarily impaired or permanently damaged, we also have to do damage control because of what the sickest of us have done to control us. So this is another way we screw up the law of cause and effect. And I mentioned that in this video where I say there are 3 ways to screw up the law of cause and effect. So the first way we screw up the law of cause and effect is when we don't look at what comes before the cause. That's knowledge of how to live. And then the natural hygienists screw up the law of cause and effect because they don't look at what comes after the effect. That's where we have a ripple effect. That's where we have knowledge of how to adapt. And then, of course, the third way we screw up the law of cause and effect is where we get in between the cause and effect and we interrupt the body's communication process. This is what allopathic medicine is doing. And then there's a whole group of people who understand that we have a sick group of people who are controlling everything. And they're convinced that if we just told everybody about what they're doing, we could solve the problem. And all that does is just gets us up one level in Plato's cave. It doesn't get us out of Plato's cave. We got to figure out why are we in Plato's cave, which is a cave of ignorance. And the reason why we're in this cave of ignorance is because we lack the knowledge of how to live. I cannot emphasize this enough. You don't apply the art without the science. And almost every protocol out there is guilty of not having the knowledge of how to live. And there's a time and a place to use all of these protocols if the science doesn't do everything we need. But in 90% of the cases, that's all we have to do. Satisfy our 12 essential needs based on the law of cause and effect, and in most cases, that's all we have to do. But remember, we can't change what we got overnight. We got these 2 additional temporary needs, especially piece 35, these subsequent causes that don't go away. So we can use other protocols to help us. I'm watching my dog on a leash, and don't knock over my bike, don't. Good girl. Okay. And we can use these other protocols if we need to, but don't start there. Don't go to an acupuncturist and listen to their poppycock about balancing the yin and yang and the ideal foods create a spleen imbalance. That's poppycock. Oh, God, that infuriates me because it doesn't remove the primary causes. It doesn't remove the suffering. It doesn't get us out of Plato's cave. It doesn't get us back up in paradise so we can play and have fun. Life is an illusion on so many levels, it's not even funny. And there's only one way to truly understand that, and that is to have a brand new reference. Why? Because we have way too many references that support our current belief system and our current way of life. And there's not a thing I can say that can challenge those references, but there's something you can do, and that's with the brand new reference. That's where you go to a seminar I uploaded, click here, and do the first of a 3-step process that I perfected. And when you do this for the appropriate length of time, you'll finally have that aha moment, and you'll come to the realization that none of these systems out there that are trying to solve our problems, whether it's traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, allopathic medicine, whatever, they're not the solutions. They're not solving our problems. Because the solution to every problem that is 100% within our control lies within each and every one of us. That's why this is the hero's journey, don't you see? The definition of a hero is simply someone who can solve a problem or problems that no one else can solve. Well, most of our problems are self-inflicted, and that means that we are the heroes. Our problem is we lack the wisdom to know the difference between a problem that's within our control and outside of control. We've been lied to and told that most of our problems are outside of control. That's not true. The vast majority of our problems are 100% within our control. And we can get rid of virtually all of these problems if we just had the knowledge of how to live. So click here and do the first of my 3-step process so that you can prove to yourself that everything I've been saying in all of my videos is true. And when you do, I can guarantee you, you're in for a treat.